Hello and welcome. You're listening to Start Again with Shauna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Together, we will uncover your soul's truest desires. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode where I introduce you to one of my new internet friends. Listen, I had the chance to speak with Sara recently, and we had the loveliest conversation, and I am so excited that she is here today to tell you all about herself and her business. Sara, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Shauna. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to connect with such beautiful, genuine souls like yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, we had such a lovely conversation. And I am so grateful that you are here today. And so, if you would, let's start with a little bit about who you are. So, tell my listeners who you are, a little bit about your business, and how you have embraced this idea of starting again.
Sure. Just to introduce myself first, I am a soul. So when we say, are we are souls. Everything else that's happening in this earth is stuff that we do. So what I do is healing and alignment coaching, and I'm a channeler as well, if you want to put it in the I am sense. And when it comes to healing, I follow different energy healing modalities. And then because I've studied different healing modalities, and then you can kind of develop your own as you go along, because you start interacting with the energies more and more, and you can customize the energies to suit different people, different clients, different patients, people who seek your help. And alignment, I do alignment coaching, which for me is the most enjoyable and the most important, because it includes the energy world as well as helping people align their thoughts, their emotions, and their body in terms of embodying whatever it is that they learn, because we're very good at everything that has to do with the mind. However, when it comes to embodiment, that's a totally different process. And I'm a channeler as well. I speak something called light language, which is present in our DNA. And once that's activated, you can channel your higher soul better. You can channel different beings as long as you have a high level of discernment to know exactly who it is or what it is that you're channeling. So that's what I do.
Well, I think that's a beautiful explanation of what you've been able to do, which is marry together a bunch of different modalities, and all geared for healing and helping people kind of align with what their passion and purpose is. I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
And I would love to dive into that a little more.
Sure.
I don't know if you and I talked about it previously in very much detail, but maybe let's start with what are those different healing modalities that you began with. I think that might be a good place to start.
Absolutely.
And kind of talk through what those are.
Sure.
I'm familiar with several.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was recently Reiki certified. So level 1 Reiki. I've just begun my whole journey in that arena. But yeah, I'd like to hear from you.
Sure. I'm a pranic healer, and in pranic healing, you get to study different aspects of the energy world. So, and then I became something called an arhatic yogi, which is a deeper knowing of yourself. And when you have a deeper knowing of yourself, what you're able to do is actually remember what it is like to maneuver energy, because we contain all the information in this universe. Everything is within us. So when we're actually learning something new, it's not really learning something new. It's actually remembering what we already know.
Right.
And this is why it's like waking up those cells, waking up that consciousness that's there, tapping into it more and more. I've also studied star magic healing, which is a form of quantum healing, only it combines the quantum science with high levels of focus and knowing how to use your inner powers, awakening your DNA, and sacred geometry. And so when I had all this and I started remembering more and more, those healing powers that are within each and every one of us started waking up. And now when like I have a patient or a client or just anybody who needs some sort of upgrade or healing, sometimes you let things just happen on their own. You don't go like, okay, now I'm going to use pranic healing for this,
Right.
or now I'm going to use crystals, or now I'm going to use star magic. That's not how it happens at all. Things just flow because, energy is all there is. So that intelligence, that higher intelligence that's within each and every one of us just knows exactly what to do, because we are all one at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And so maybe let's walk through how you got to where you are today. What did that journey look like for you? I'm going to venture to guess you didn't wake up as a child and say, I want to be a pranic healer.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But ever since I was 7, or probably even younger than that, I actually, at the age of 7, I told my dad that I'm going to grow up and help people. I didn't know how, but I just knew. And I used to get these visions. I actually used to see ETs as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't share that with anybody because I used to get a little bit scared.
Yes.
And I didn't know what to make of them. And of course, I'm from the Middle East, so we don't really talk openly about things like that,
Mm-hmm.
At least at that time. Now things are different. People are more open. So I always had this inner knowing that at some point I'm going to go into a field where I can help large amounts of people. However, you pass through a series of traumas and you go to college. I studied marketing and advertising, worked in the advertising field, but my office was like a therapist's clinic. Everybody would come and talk to me whenever they had a problem, whenever they wanted something solved, and they would feel better. So that shift to healing was transitional, but somehow it was always there. It was always there. And yeah, I've been through really rough traumatic events that made me decide once and for all that this is what I really want to do. And yeah, and they say when the student is ready, the teacher shows up.
I love that saying. I use it often.
Yeah, it's amazing because the founder of pranic healing, who is Master Choa Koksui, he passed away, but at that time I got introduced to one of his most amazing meditations. And my friend actually told me, Sarah, would you like to come and meditate? I was going through a very tough time in my life. And I was like, meditation? Yeah, I've never done that. Let me give it a try. And that was the start. That was the start. Yeah.
Yeah. You just talked about how your desk in your marketing office was like a therapist office. And I remember having the same thing happen to me. We were in this open floor format, so we didn't have, that was all the rage, or it still is, I suppose. Anyways, I was sitting there one day and one person after another had come and sat down and had a conversation. And I just felt like I was, chatting with my coworkers. And yes, I was helping them solve problems. But it was later that afternoon that one of my coworkers who sat right across the table, on the other side of the desk, she said, "Are you a doctor? Because there have been people at your desk all day."
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yes. It's amazing how the universe communicates with us in such ways. Like I even had a leather couch in my office and people would walk in and lie down.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But yeah, we were like being prepared for whatever it is we do now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's always the case, I found. And it's, people ask me, oh, how did you get to do insert whatever the thing is? And I'm like, well, it's never a straight line. It was always one step led me to the next one, led me to the next one. And you're right. It's always preparing you for what's to come. And we usually don't know what that is, but I love it just the same.
Exactly. Like we don't know what this is preparing us for in the future, right?
Right. But I know enough now to know I'm here for it. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so when you look back at your story, what inspires you most about it?
Wow. There's a lot that inspired faith, conviction. The fact that I have that knowingness makes it, I wouldn't say easier, but when you have a knowingness, you just start again, no matter what happens. You don't get pulled down all the way. Even when you're pulled down all the way, you just know, because I had the strong faith ever since I was a child, and that's a blessing. I love Jesus ever since I was 2 years old. I mean, my parents are not Christian. I didn't grow up in a Christianity. We didn't know anything about him, but I had this strong love for him. I used to see these cartoons on TV with Jesus, and I was like, I know this man, and I love this. Anyway, and this is just one form of faith. When we talk about faith, I don't mean religion in any sense. I mean strong sense of knowingness, conviction. People who have strong spiritual foundations, no matter what they go through, this sense of knowingness will always pull you back up because you're aware of what's going on. You understand how the universe works. However, I used to underestimate hope. I used to say, no, faith is more important than hope. But you know what? For people who don't have strong spiritual foundations, it is the hope that pulls you up.
100%.
Because you don't have that faith, yet hope is there that will give you that glimpse of light for you to not give up and not surrender to whatever it is you're going through.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Well, the way you describe everything is so beautiful. And that was the same.
Thank you.
So as you look back on your journey, and, I think each of these experiences we're gaining knowledge and wisdom and learning lessons. What do you think is the common theme in your lessons?
Repetitive patterns when it comes to knowing my self-worth. And the patterns that I've had throughout until very recently, because every experience is there to teach us something. If you do not know your self-worth and you do not really appreciate yourself for who you are, or where you tend to sometimes compromise tiny bits of yourself without even realizing it at times, that's when the universe is going to hit you back in the face and tell you, hey, watch where you're going. This is not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Know thyself. That's why the most important spiritual teaching, whether in Hermeticism or in energy healing or in any form of spirituality, any spiritual school there is throughout the centuries and the years, knowing thyself is the most important lesson we can all learn, whether we're spiritual or not, knowing who you truly are. Yeah.
And so if somebody is listening today and they're like, yeah, I've heard this, how do I do that? Or what is one thing I can do to help me know myself better? What would you say to them?
People are good. There's a lot of free material on YouTube. People watch it all the time. They understand. And we're very good at assimilating information. However, I advise people to tap into the heart's intelligence. And this is what I teach in my alignment coaching, because the heart is a smarter brain. And that's been scientifically proven. You have 40,000 brain-like cells in your heart, known as sensory neurites. And when you learn how to tap into the heart's intelligence, it becomes much easier to maneuver the brain, because the brain is a tool that we're given to learn how to live our earthly journey. But the real portal is the heart. And so tapping into the heart intelligence, learning how to truly open our hearts to love, because we think we know how to love, but there is always another level. There's always another degree of love. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's really important. That's how many people with, let's say, mental illnesses can actually heal by tapping, because changing the mind with the mind is doable, but it takes a much longer time and it's much harder. Yeah. And this is why you use the heart to change the mind. So
yeah, you bypass it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I heard it. I've done quite a bit of research on depression, mostly because I experienced it myself for the first time just a few years ago. And it was really an eye-opening experience. It was one of those moments where I think the universe cracks us open to be vulnerable and experience, and for all sorts of reasons. But what I was able to determine or heard somewhere, I wish I were a little better at remembering who exactly I've heard this from, so I'm going to work on that. But I heard that depression is not a happiness issue. It's not a matter of lacking joy. It's a connection issue, and it's being disconnected. And it's from either, well, it's one and the same, but it's either being disconnected from God or being disconnected from yourself, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
But connection to people, this whole idea of us being unified as one, because ultimately we are, this is the crux of depression. And I don't even know why that came to mind for me to clarify, but you had touched on it. And I feel like that's an important thing to remind people of.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It is a matter of some sort of disconnection, but it's part of the awakening process. If you hadn't had that depression, you wouldn't be who you are right now, doing whatever it is that you do right now, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So
100%.
So it is that rock bottom is a very important, you're being pulled down only to be catapulted back up all the way. So it's very important. And you're absolutely right, Shauna. It is a matter of disconnection from the soul. And usually happens when we lack this life force. So even if you try to make a depressed person feel some sort of joy, they're not capable of it. So this is where meditation helps. This is where breath work helps, because when you breathe, you're breathing in life force. So you're filling that body back with the energy or the prana or the chi that it needs to get recharged and energized again, whether it is on a cellular level or on an emotional level or on a mental level. So yeah, you have to work on all the different layers and all the different parts of who we are, and not just on the emotions or the thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you touched on something that's really important. I think we all hear a lot about meditation and the benefits. And I consistently hear from people that they're just not good at it, or they can't meditate, or they've tried and it doesn't work for them. So I think we should talk about that a little bit more.
Sure.
What would you, I always recommend kind of baby steps to get you there. And I always say that it's a practice. They call it a practice because it takes practice. But what would you recommend for people who have heard they should meditate, but don't yet like they haven't yet incorporated that into their day-to-day lives?
Sure. First of all, people can look at meditation as something complicated, and so they fear it because. And the number one reason that I found for people not meditating is because they fed themselves with that story. I can't meditate. I've tried, but it doesn't work. This is just a story that we feed ourselves. I've tried. You don't try something once and then decide that it doesn't work for you. That, you don't go to the gym once and you don't build muscle and you go like, see, I went to the gym, it doesn't work.
I mean, I do that, but but no, I understand what you mean, and you're right. Yes, it does
It's
take.
just people who say they can't meditate are people don't know how to really relax. Meditation is just teaching somebody how to really relax every single part of you. And start with 2 minutes. And people who can't meditate, they find it hard to go in and face whatever it is they need to face. So that's why they constantly need to be distracted by something outside of themselves, because facing their issues would be too hard for them to do. And it's so much easier to be distracted. And it's so much easier to tell yourself, yeah, I can't meditate. I've tried it. It doesn't work. Okay, let me move on to something else.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And I tell people the 2-minute thing as well. Because listen, the very first time you sit down to meditate for 2 minutes, it is hard. It feels like an eternity.
Of course, because you're asking your brain to function at a different frequency than it usually does, if we want to speak from a biological perspective.
Right.
So the brain is not used to being told what frequency to work on. It's always in that beta frequency where we're in a rush and we're stressed out. That we know how to deal with very easily. But you're telling the brain to, hey, sit down and do nothing. And the monkey mind goes crazy and the thoughts will start coming in. The most important thing is not to fight with your thoughts, and never tell yourself, okay, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to shut my brain down and I'm going to try not to think, because that defeats the purpose.
Right.
And it doesn't work. If you tell someone don't think of an elephant, the first thing they're going to do is think of an elephant. So
correct.
You have to be okay with those thoughts and you have to welcome them with open arms. Like, yeah, whatever thoughts want to come in, just come in. No expectations. I'm just going to sit for 2 minutes, no matter what happens. And we take it from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. And speaking of advice, what advice would you give to the younger you?
Oh boy. I would say feel the fear and do it anyway.
That's a good one.
And I would actually wouldn't be advice. I would tell my younger self, I love you unconditionally.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
Nothing is more important. And yeah, that's what I use with many of my clients when I do inner child healing. And we go back to different stages of their life. And usually most of our issues stem from some sort of lack of love, whether it is our love towards ourselves or lack of love from others towards us.
Yep. Well, and you've touched on this, so let's talk about that. When it comes to inner child healing, I know I've done my own inner child healing, and certainly I'm familiar and have had many conversations about it. But what would you tell my listeners in terms of what that is, first of all, and why it's important, and what is the best way to go about doing it?
Sure.
It's a very loaded question I just asked you.
Right. It's all right. I love it. It's a pretty good question because it's very vital and essential in your healing process. If you do not hear the inner child, the other forms of healing will not be enough, because the inner child doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go. It is you. Time, we live in a 3D reality, and that's the only reason we experience time. Otherwise, that child is the adult, is the teenager. So, it's all you. So getting back in touch with your inner child is how you resolve trauma. And we do that through certain meditations, through getting you into a calm, relaxed state of what I call hyper-presence, where you're totally present in the now moment, so that you can sit there and talk to your inner child. And I teach people in the meditation, I guide them into like projecting themselves out there. So you get to project yourself and speak to yourself and see yourself and tell yourself whatever you think is important for yourself to heal. So it'll be just like you healing an actual child or saying something to your child. And this is the, part of the process where it doesn't take long, by the way, because usually people, when they're in a state of relaxation, the traumas will surface and they'll be able to deal with it. And of course, we need, they're not supposed to do that on their own. That's why energy healers are there. That's why life coaches are there. That's why therapists are there. You're never supposed to do these things on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's an excellent point. And I think, I know that we are conditioned to believe that we should be able to face anything on our own, or that we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet. And there's this whole concept around how it's perceived as weakness to rely on other human beings. But when it comes down to it, we're not meant to do anything on our own. And so I think that's a big part of people being able to seek out a healer or a mentor or a coach or whatever it is that they're a therapist. That's the first obstacle, is realizing not only is it okay to ask for help, but that's what we're meant to do.
Absolutely. There's a big difference between codependency and interdependence. Codependency is when you cannot be there on your own in terms of the way you live your life, and you always need somebody to do certain things for you, whereas you as a human being are born complete. But when you're in a calamity or when you're facing some sort of traumatic situation, you are supposed to ask for help.
Right.
The law of oneness means we're interconnected, and interdependence means that I have something that can be of benefit to you, and hey, you have something that can be of benefit to me. This is how a community gets built. This is how a community happens. And as a species living on Mother Earth, we are supposed to help one another. And that's the only way you can actually know what oneness is. You're not going to know what oneness is simply by meditating far in a mountain away from all people.
Right.
And that's great spirituality, but real spirituality happens when you interact with people.
Yes.
And when you get to help them or get to be helped by them. It's okay to need others.
Yes.
To a certain extent. Once you have all the tools that you need and you have enough energy to help yourself, then yeah, by all means.
And I think that that's one thing that we as Americans have gotten really, really wrong, is this disconnected way of living lives. And we build these little nuclear families, as we call them, which is a terrible name, by the way. But we're each of our families is this standalone unit, and we're meant to be a part of a community. And so then we as Americans, we're seeking out all these, trying to find new ways to build community, because we've broken that apart in our family structures. Like it's very uncommon for grandparents to live in the home with parents and children. And really that's what, we're all meant to do, is be a part of community and belong to this bigger unified concept, It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But whatever helps people to feel connected to one another, to learn how to treat one another with kindness, with respect, with love, and to learn how to care for one another. No matter what structure of a certain society, it doesn't matter what structure it takes or what's the system that's followed, as long as the connection is there. in one way or another. So that's what truly matters, the connection. Because the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. And I think Tony Robbins says that.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting how innate it is in us, even if we don't realize it. So yes, society may have disconnected us from our families, but then we as a soul know that that's what we need. So we build community and we find that connection because
it's amazing.
Yeah, that's why our friend groups are the way they are. And you see Facebook groups and social media, like people are seeking out the connection that they need, because I believe our soul always knows what we need. And the only thing that gets in our way is us and the way we think about it.
Get fed. Absolutely. Yep. That's absolutely true. Yep.
So what is next for you? Where are you going with your business? Because this is going to lead me to my next question.
All right. So now I'm focusing on my alignment coaching business, because I've seen the results of that with people's lives. And it truly does transform people's lives. And I had to see it with my own eyes with my first 10 clients. I was like, let me see, because when I first launched my program, I really wanted it to be as perfect as possible. And I wanted to see, I charged it and energized it with a lot of divine energy, with all the energies that I had access to. And I was like, I want to see how people are going to embody that, because it's all about alignment, has a lot to do with embodiment. It's so easy to learn, but assimilating into your core is where that's when the real change happens, this whole immersive process. And they've experienced incredible results, and I'm excited to take that further and, have more people sign up and be able to share that, because so many people really need the help. And some are very hesitant because of limiting beliefs or because of certain programs that they've been fed, and because they're with a healing and energy sector, if you want, it's become a bit too business oriented. That people may use that authentic humanitarian aspect, which is the foundation of healing in the first place. Just like, with the medical practice, some medical doctors, you don't feel like you're going to a doctor anymore who really cares about your health. Sometimes you feel that they're doing that because it's their profession, and it's not, there's no heart in it. So this is just a message from me to all healers. Remember why you're healing in the first place. Yeah.
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 Well, and you've touched on limiting beliefs a little bit, but what do you now believe is possible for your own life?
Everything is possible. We are the universe experiencing itself. And when you feel that with your heart, when you know that as a soul, and just not know it just with your mind, but on a very deep level, you know that every dream is there. You don't create it, you don't attract it, you align with it, because it's already there.
Yes.
So we don't create things, we don't attract things, although I use these terms a lot, but in reality, if we want to go deeper, we don't really create anything, and we don't really attract anything. It's within us. So we just align with it, we tap into it. Mm-hmm. And the power of choice is very important. We have so much more power than we know. So we have the power to choose what we want to align with, and we want to claim that power instead of living it in fear or approaching life from a fear frequency. Approaching life from a love frequency is how we align much faster with our dreams and our desires.
Well, and tangibly, how would you tell somebody to do that? If somebody's listening today and they're like, oh, how do I align with love frequency?
Absolutely. We start through love intelligence, through tapping into the powers of your heart. So usually when it comes to people who are very analytical and very logic oriented, I give them the scientific aspect. I don't just start with the spiritual aspect. You teach them about the biological power of the heart as a generator of an electromagnetic field that's probably hundreds, if not thousands of times stronger than the brain's. And then you start teaching them how to open their heart slowly. So I use certain meditations that are frequency encoded. I channel certain frequencies that help open people's hearts faster. And I even use mantras that were very helpful to me and that have helped me tap into the love frequency much faster. And that's just the beginning of the process. And, as you move along and you start practicing bit by bit, and it doesn't take a long time. It doesn't take a big chunk of your day. It's just like if you say like 20 minutes to half an hour per day can do the trick. Yeah. And then you'll find yourself functioning and living your life at a totally different frequency. And then your reality will start to shift in accordance to your changes inside. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll be honest, a lot of what you are describing, because this often happens in my interviews, is I will feel like my guest is talking directly to me and I forget that I'm here to interview you. But in my family, there is this heart condition that has been passed down from one to the other. And so anytime I hear people, so I have experienced heart palpitations, and there's a name for it, and people get really concerned when I tell them this thing that is a completely benign aspect of how my heart functions historically compared to most people. And I don't usually tell people this out loud because they'll think I'm crazy, but I have healed this heart of mine by not doing what the doctors have told me to do. And so anytime I hear of heart frequency or opening your heart, I'm like, that is the key to healing this physical organ in my body. And so that's what kept coming to mind as you were explaining really. And so really I was just getting lost in what you were sharing with me. And I'm like, yes, I know. This is what I've done. Yes.
First of all, it's not crazy at all. And people,
of course not.
Yeah. It's, our cells are 99.9% empty space. And it's not really empty space. It's actually the quantum field that's filled with information. And we are beings of light. We are actually, there's no such thing as a physical body. So love is a very high frequency. And this is why love heals. And even if healers use their willpower, which is very strong, you still need the love aspect for those results to be maintained, because that's the frequency that actually heals. Love, if we want to look at the Hawkins scale of high frequencies and low frequencies, you have love, you have joy, you have peace and enlightenment, right? So of course, these are the frequencies that heal. There are certain spiritual scientists who've shown videos of people's tumors shrinking within 3 minutes through the use of certain sound frequencies that were filled and immersed in love and said with so much love and so much knowingness. So love becomes more than just an emotion. It's a state of being.
Well, and there's a very popular science experiment that goes around and comes around. And it's this concept where you have multiple plants and you speak loving words to one and you speak unloving words to the other. And what happens to that plant, you can see what love does. You can see how healing love is just in that one experiment with plants.
Exactly. Love can change the structure of water. That's why when you cook, some people cook, but no matter what ingredients, even if they put all the right ingredients, you don't enjoy their food. It's because of the energy that they project onto the food. So when you cook, that's why they say cook with love. It's very true. You need to cook with love because that food is going to assimilate that frequency. Everything's energy. Everything is energy, and we are no different. And therefore, anything that's a disease is just dis-ease. So it's lack of ease. And so, of course, we're able to heal ourselves. This
was my question. It came back to me just like I said it would. So I've done some talking about this concept of our emotions that get stuck in our bodies, and that is what becomes disease or ailments or even just an ache in your toe. Like that the source of pain in our bodies is really just our souls communicating with us. So what can you share in reaction to that?
We have to know that our bodies are very sophisticated biological computers, which means that everything is a program. And when something is aching or when something is not right in our body because of certain, let's say, genetics, you've inherited this genetically. When you're inheriting genetically, you're just passing down the program. However, your environment, according to epigenetics, has the power to change that. So it's what you expose yourself to. So if I tell the story to myself over and over again that I'm not going to heal, then it's very hard to heal, and that this is genetic and I can't do anything about it. So that's what I'm feeding my brain, and that's what I'm feeding my body. And so what I'm doing is reinforcing that program that already exists. However, I have a choice, the power of choice, to focus my attention on how I want my body to feel. I'm not saying denying that you have something wrong going on in your body. I'm saying focus on what it is you want your body to feel. So I want my body to feel healthy. Yes, it's not going to be easy. It doesn't happen overnight because you've had this program that is so embossed in your cells, and you want to change to a different program. And this is where connecting to your truest self helps, because you get to know who you really are as a being of light, love, and power, and what you're capable of, which raises the degree of love in your heart, increases your willpower, and so you're able to switch to another program that says, I am healthy, and your body will just respond because your cells are always listening to your own instructions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I am fairly certain that my listeners are going to want to engage with you. So how can people find you?
Sure. So it's they can go to goodlifebysara.com/embody. I think they'll be easier to write down at some point, but that's where they can join my private group. I post a lot of free videos and I give away a lot of free material, and they can book a frequency upgrade call with me. It's a totally free call where I explain further about what it is I can do and see what they need so that I can help them to the best of my abilities. Yep.
Amazing. Well, I'll be sure to include all those links in the show notes so people can go there to see it as well.
Thank you.
But thank you for being with me today and for coming on to chat with me again. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Shauna. This was incredible. And it's such a pleasure communicating with you as a soul that's so at peace with herself, and it shows, and your beautiful heart radiates through. Like, now I'm looking at you and I can see your aura and I can see the light coming out of your face and your heart. And I'm very grateful for that. It's a blessing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, listen. Are you struggling to find what your true purpose really is? You should try journaling. At the very least, it will get you to a better feeling place than where you are right now. I've created a set of journal prompts to get you on your way to discovering who you truly are and where you want to go from here. My free download is called Journal Yourself to Joy, and it's available at shaunalee.com under Free Stuff. These are my tried and true journal prompts that will raise your energy, increase your positivity, and brighten your day. Download yours today.